Good afternoon. Oh boy. I thought I had put it on. You know, it's actually set up that way so I wouldn't be nervous, but no. Good afternoon. My name is Donald Gallegos, the District Attorney here in the 8th Judicial District. I want to introduce my Chief Deputy District Attorney, which is Ron Olson. And I have a deputy also, Tim Hassan, who's not here, that has been taking a lot of the lead on this case and working very closely with the Sheriff's Office. First thing I want to do is compliment the agencies involved and be very thankful that no one was hurt, no one was injured, and that the public safety has been assured. The Sheriff's they've been tirelessly working on this case, and they've been very good about keeping us apprised of everything that's going on. I'm going to give you an idea of where the case stands procedurally, and that's probably all I can go into at this time. As the Sheriff mentioned, there are 5 suspects that have been arrested and have been detained, 3 females who we believe are the mothers of the children. We're still in the process of trying to figure out which child goes with which mother, so we're still doing a lot of that. The 2 males, as the Sheriff indicated earlier, one being the father of the child that was reported missing. And again, we want to emphasize that until we get positive identification from the Office of the Medical Investigator, we won't be commenting much more on anything to do with that. Don't want to get too far ahead on that. The case, they've been charged 11 counts each. They are all similar charges, and each count deals with each child involved. And they've been charged with child abuse, which in New Mexico can be done either intentionally or negligently. And negligently, as determined by our courts, is not really negligently, it's more recklessly. And so what you have to do is place a child or permit a child to be placed in a situation that's greatly dangerous to their health, to their safety, and those kind of things. We've spent most of last night or yesterday evening, this morning, screening out the charges, looking at them, and we still have a lot of work to do. The defendants are entitled to an appearance, obviously, in front of the court. We hope to get that accomplished maybe by tomorrow morning. We are still in the process of deciding whether we will file any petitions for no bond. Ever since the change of the bail requirements by the constitutional amendment, there's been a lot of confusion. We're still trying. We've filed petitions here in the past with mixed results, and so we're going to see which one, if any of those, we're going to be proceeding on that. What I can tell you, those of you who are interested, you probably won't know anything more until the morning, maybe even later this evening if you want to call, but more than likely in the morning, as to whether those petitions will be filed or not. So then the process will be as follows. We have the option of going to a grand jury, taking the cases. However, Taos County does not have a sitting grand jury. We have a grand jury panel whose term just expired by a day or two. And to convene a grand jury and bring in a new panel and orient them is logistically fairly difficult. So we will be probably, because the defendants are in detention, the rule requires us to have them have a preliminary hearing, which is a determination of probable cause, and that has to happen within 10 days. So we are working again with the Sheriff's Office to get all the information we need in case we have to go to a preliminary hearing within 10 days. Or if something else happens, quite possibly a grand jury presentation. So that's kind of procedurally where the case stands. Obviously there's more steps after that, but you know, if we do get a binder over, if we do get a probable cause finding by a judge or a grand jury, then that kicks it into the felony trial level, and we'll go from there. I do want to let you know that all the counts are charged as third-degree felonies, and in New Mexico, a third-degree felony is punishable by up to 3 years in prison, also a $10,000 fine, or both. In New Mexico, I believe, and I'm not sure, I didn't check, Ron, but it may be what's called a serious violent felony. If it's classified as a serious violent felony, then a person, if that finding is made, or if it's enumerated, then they would have to spend at least 85% of their time incarcerated. If it's not classified as a serious violent felony, then in New Mexico it's day-to-day. So when you look at the math of it, if somebody's charged with a third-degree felony, it's nonviolent, they only will spend 1.5 years in prison unless they act up and do some disciplinary stuff. If it's a serious violent felony, then you would spend 85% of that 3 years. So that's just thrown out as an example. And I don't know if Ron has anything else to add. If not, I'll stand for questions.
Question for you, given the fact that there was a dead child found on the property, and given the fact that there was all these child abuse charges, why would there be any hesitation, or why would you pause on filing a petition for a noble bond? At least for the males here.
Well, I never said we weren't gonna file. I'm just saying that hasn't happened yet. So, does that answer your question?
Was that the yes, or is that a no that you're gonna?
You guys are good. We are looking at the possibility of filing a no bond petition. We're just not gonna know until the morning. So to be more specific about that is we are going through the analysis now, all the requirements that we've tried to understand about these rule changes. And believe me, you guys have covered it plenty of times of what's going on in Albuquerque, to make sure that if we file a petition for no bond, that it's backed up sufficiently. Because as you know, if we file for a no bond hearing, and a no bond on a defendant, and even if a judge grants it, that's immediately appealable to the Court of Appeals. So we want to make sure we're on solid footing so that we're not setting something up only to be kicked back by the Court of Appeals. So again, you will have your answer tomorrow morning.
We also had some questions for the sheriff, if it's possible.
And we'll ask each of the sheriff and Secretary Jacobson to be up here if anyone has questions for any of them specifically.
Where was
So,
the child found on the property? Where was the body?
The child was found on the inner portion of the compound. I'm sorry, the investigation is still ongoing. I can't comment further on an exact location.
Do you know how long the child was possibly there for?
No.
That body?
Did any of the 5 adults arrested provide any information that led to the discovery of the remains?
There was a limited amount of disclosure. We wished that we could have obtained more.
The property owners say they knew about the arrest warrant for Siraj in April, early May, and let law enforcement here know. How come you guys didn't go in sooner?
Suraj Wahab was never identified by surveillance photographs as being there. Yes, sir.
My name is Michael Wyman. I actually represent the Muslims community, small Muslim community here. And I'd like to correct something about a name. I'd like to ask you, you pronounce the name of the person, Mr. Siraj Ibn Wahaj, it should be, and not Siraj Wahaj. He's the son of a very prominent preacher in Islam in America, and you pronouncing his name as though this is the person you're talking about, but he's the son of this person, and in that name should be Ibn Wahaj, so people don't, with all these cameras here, so people don't confuse the name with the prominent leader of a Muslim community in New York, so maybe we should get the name correctly. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I just want to do that.
Thank-
And on that note, can we also talk about the father, because it's been
Let me answer his question first, and then I'll call on you. Thank you for that correction. There is absolutely no disrespect meant to the religion or the mispronunciation of a name. I do believe that the father and the son are separated by many years, so the full identifiers of a person, including their birth date, should clear that up very easily. Thank you.
In the name,
Thank you.
it says son of Wahaj. See, so
Thank
if
you.
you say the name correctly, it will indicate that he's not that person.
Thank you.
Missing one
Sir?
part of the name.
I have a two-part question. One, early on, I believe it was you who categorized these people as extremists. When you use the word extremist, how do you define extremists? What in your opinion, made them extreme?
I can't comment further on that. As I said, we worked collectively with FBI, Georgia authorities. The investigation is still ongoing, both federally and at the state level. I can't comment
It was
further
your
to
press
that.
release that said they were extremists of Muslim belief. Those were your words from Taos County, right?
Yes.
But you don't want to define what extremist means to you?
What evidence?
I'm not going to define further anything that could compromise the ongoing investigation. Please respect that. Thank you.
So on one question more, it's been.
I tell you what, he's had his hand up for a long time. Let's go to him. Thank you.
We're almost done.
Go ahead.
This is my last question.
Go ahead, sir, over here.
I'll ask the next question then.
The Georgia warrant said that the father wanted to perform an exorcism on the boy. Do you have any evidence that that happened, what that involved? You also, is there any indication of the cause of death, the body of the
To the first part of your question, the answer is no, and to the second part, it would have to be the same answer as well. We couldn't comment further on anything that is part of an ongoing investigation.
Do you have any idea why they came to Mexico in the first place?
Again, I can't comment on things a part of an ongoing investigation. I don't have any specifics as to how they ended up in northern New Mexico. And I will go back to you now,
Thank
sir.
you. As we're talking about the father and the son relationship, in your investigation, are you at all looking at that relationship or the fact that it's been reported that the father had some sort of a connection to the World Trade Center bombing?
I, at my level and state level, am investigating child abuse, a fugitive from justice, and a man that's accused of harboring that fugitive.
Can you go into detail about the surveillance, how you were surveilling the property and working with any of the other agencies to try to identify the people that were there?
Yes, the FBI was conducting surveillance operations over northern New Mexico, including this compound.
On a daily basis, is it putting aerial videos, and did you have?
Unfortunately, they are not here to answer that question today, and I can't comment for another agency. I'm sorry.
Did Taos County Sheriff's ask a private citizen to get involved in the surveillance efforts at any time?
That may have been through the FBI. Again, that would be an appropriate question to ask the agency that was conducting the surveillance.
But no Taos County Sheriff's asked private citizens
We-
in Taos County?
We worked with the federal agency for surveillance options. The federal agency conducted surveillance. Thank you.
I know the text alerted you, but what actually triggered you to go in?
The high probability and belief that there were starving children.
Can you describe the message, how were they able to get it out of such a remote site?
No, I still don't know that. And it wasn't sent to us. It was sent to other investigators in Georgia, and it was forwarded to us.
Was it text or a call?
I don't actually know how it was sent.
This compound was there legally, right? It's on somebody else's land?
Yes,
June 12th, the Taos County filed for a summons to, basically, it was an eviction. Lucas Morton was supposed to be in magistrate court on June 27th. I don't think he ever showed up for court. Why wasn't that enough reason to break up this compound before you guys moved in?
that is a civil matter. It did not rise to a warrant issued by the courts.
Those property owners told us that they spotted the child, who they thought was the child, on the property. Did they let you know about that?
The FBI conducted surveillance and did interview the people that you were talking about. And as I had stated earlier, there were photographs taken of children and others on the property. They were never identified as being those targets.
From the time from Friday to Sunday, where were the three women that were detained and then released? The compound wasn't closed off between Friday until, again, I believe on Monday. Do you know where the whereabouts of those three women during that time?
They were in a sheltered location, not in custody.
Could they have been on the compound? The compound was wide open, and it seems like it's now a crime scene. Should the compound have been closed off to more people from Friday until Monday?
We executed our warrant on Friday that was specific to the items we were allowed by law to search for. On the conclusion of that, we had no legal right to hold that property any further until Sunday, when I obtained additional information that led me to prepare a second search warrant. And then we took the property back under our control and executed that search warrant yesterday.
Can you say what that additional information was?
It'll be public record in the affidavit that's filed at district court.
Were police charges expected?
I can't comment on what is forthcoming, only that we are working closely with our prosecutors to determine what the best and next course will be.
Were police afraid of an armed confrontation going in? Was that a concern of yours?
Man, we're always concerned about that. We live in a time in a country where you never know what's going on, and law enforcement lives with their head on a swivel. So the answer to that is always yes.
How did the woman from the camp communicate
I'm sorry,
The woman who was in the TF, one of the women, how did she communicate with you guys?
I never said a woman from
Didn't you
from
say
there
someone
communicated
reached
with
out to you?
us.
Didn't you say that someone reached out to you to say that they were starving, there's no food, water?
No, I said that there was a message intercepted by the Georgia authorities that were investigating this as well, and they forwarded that information to us.
And how, do you know how they were in contact with this woman?
No, I do not.
I'm not looking for graphic details for this question, but is there any way that you could approximate how long you think that that child may have been on that property deceased? I mean, when he was discovered, again, not looking for details, but is there an approximate time period?
There probably is that OMI field investigators could answer. I would not be able to answer that for you. I'm sorry.
The fact that one of the men, Siraj, was carrying a weapon upon when you guys entered the property, why did that not bring an additional charge since he was a fugitive out of Georgia?
I'm sorry.
The
So,
fact that Siraj was armed when you entered the property,
yes.
will he not pick up an additional charge since he was a fugitive?
It's not illegal to carry a firearm on your own property unless you're a convicted felon. At this point, all avenues of charging or amendments to charges are being considered by the prosecution team.
Do you know if the kids were being taught to shoot guns or anything like that?
I can't comment on that. I'm sorry.
I have a question for Secretary Jacobson.
Very good.
Is there anything that you can tell us regarding how those 11 children are doing today in terms of their nutrition, their well-being, when you receive them into your custody? Can you just describe maybe their overall state?
I can tell you that at this point they are safe and I feel being very well cared for. As we've mentioned, when we did receive this call, what we would do is go out and do two things. We have to conduct an investigation because there's a legal component to what we're doing as well, where we need to file, if we're going to keep the kids in custody, a petition. As I mentioned, we're filing today. From there would be a hearing in 10 days, at which point we would again need to go before a judge and be able to make the case as to why those children stay in custody. As that's occurring, we also have to make sure we're looking out, most importantly and first and foremost, for the well-being of these children. So making sure we are getting them fed, that we would be getting them clean clothes, getting them really as comfortable as possible. And then in New Mexico, it's our goal to, as quickly as possible, get them into a home-like setting, so get them where they can be surrounded by people who can provide that care for them, looking out for those needs, nutrition, etc.
Is there anything you can say about their condition when you receive them?
I think just what has already been reported, and we're not really in a position to say anything beyond that. We would hate to do anything that would compromise any sort of ongoing investigation or case.
If any of these parents are convicted or not convicted, what are the chances that they ever go back to their parents?
So what we have to do in New Mexico, in order for children to be in the state's custody, we basically have to prove two things. One, that those children were facing some sort of imminent harm or danger, and then two, that we made reasonable efforts to find other family members to not break up that family unit. Now, a situation like this, certainly law enforcement felt it did meet those standards and were able to give us that 48-hour hold. Now that's the petition that we're filing with the court, would allow us to maintain custody till that 10-day hearing. At that time, we again would need to go before a judge and make the case as to why we believe they should stay in our custody. At those hearings, I think it's important for people to know that both parents would have representation as well. The children also would have someone representing them, depending on the age of the children. It's either someone who is representing the best interest of the child or what the child wants themselves. So that would go before a court. If at that time we maintain custody, the next hearing would be 60 days later, at which point, again, we would need to go before and put forth the case as to why those children would need to remain in the state's custody. At each of those hearings, the burden of proof gets higher, so the state would have a higher burden of proof that we would need to contend with to make that case.
So you say like a legal representative for the parents would have to be there, or another family member would have to be there?
So each of the parents, or in any custody case where the state is attempting to get custody of a child, what are called the respondents or the parents. They will be represented by an attorney. Usually the parents and an attorney goes to those court hearings, but they do have people, again, making the case as to why the state should not have custody.
Excuse me, madam. I was approached by a representative of the parents of these children, and they're asking basically, is there anything they can do? Should they come here to your office and see what they can do for the children? They're concerned about their grandparents, regardless of what's going on. So is there anything they can do? Could I advise them anything from you?
Sure.
To them?
Certainly. So part of what our staff is doing at this time is looking to see what family is out there. Then at that point, the staff is in a position to assess the safety of that family, to look at any history, concerns. But absolutely, we are working really hard to build that full family tree as we speak so that we can determine where there are relatives. So you can certainly have them contact our local office if they haven't already. Mhm.
A question for the Attorney General. Can you tell us about the 10-day period and how now the finding of the human remains on the property, is that going to help expedite the process of getting the body ID?
Go ahead and repeat that.
Okay, so you say you have this 10-day period, correct?
Yes, correct.
And now a body has been discovered on you. So as far as getting the charges that you want to put forward, is this going to expedite the process of getting this person ID?
Okay, I want to be clear that the charges we're going forward with are charges that we have probable cause on. As prosecutors, that's the only thing we have to have probable cause. Regarding the body that was recovered, you know, we're not even gonna do anything unless or until, and we will get a report from Office of the Medical Investigator. Should that lead to something else? I don't know. That would be just speculation, and I hate to do that. By the way, I don't know if you gave me a lot more work by calling me Attorney General or less work. I'm not sure. Thanks.
Anything further for, yes?
Sheriff, I got one more for you.
Yes.
Do we believe that we moved in at the right time on this compound, or was there anything throughout the surveillance process that could have led Taos counties to intervene before they did?
I had no probable cause to get a search warrant to go onto this property prior to the day I wrote the first one. I wished, in hindsight, there was, but we would not have been there lawfully.
One more question, just on timing thing. So did you guys go back in on Monday to search? I know you said you found the remains.
Thought I covered that well enough, but yes, we did Monday on a second search warrant based on new and additional information that led us to probable cause.
Was the spokesperson from the FBI invited to be here today?
Yes.
And are they still working with you guys in the investigation, and did they include any information about a crash that happened in Alabama before they were even arrived in New Mexico? Are you all aware of that?
Yes.
And were there give a reason why the FBI spokesman was not here today at all?
No, you would need to contact their public information office. I cannot speak for another agency. Mr. John Miller, you're being awful quiet, and that's unlike you.
I don't know if you went over this, but did you guys find an underground tunnel that was built on the property?
There will be a diagram and so forth of the compound that will be attached to our report and prepared and delivered to the district attorney's office. Yes, there were trenches and things like that on the property.
You spoke previously, or mentioned previously about trips. Is that an actual trap on the property, or just tripping hazard?
Oh, trips as in trip hazards and hazardous things.
Yeah.
Not me getting to go to Hawaii next week.
There's no booby traps or things like that?
No, there were many hazards posing danger to responders and occupants, but no booby traps that were found. Thank you.
And have the women said anything about what they were doing there and why they were there in the first place? Do you guys know any of that?
It's part of the ongoing investigation, and it's part of the investigative file that the district attorney's office might be able or might not be able to comment on. I can't.
Sorry, but does the search continue while you're waiting for the medical results?
In the event of any new information that was to come to us, yes, certainly we would be diligent about following any and every bit of information.
Your allegation in your police report that children appeared to have eaten days, has that been confirmed by a medical professional?
That would be a question for CYFD, but I seriously doubt you're gonna get an answer, John.
Can you say anything more about the remains? You know if it was a child or an adult?
I think I was specific, it was a child,
I mean, would it fit the age range of the missing child, about 3 years old?
most likely. By the way, we discovered these remains yesterday on Abdul's 4th birthday. Thank you, I have nothing further. You guys have a safe trip home, God bless.
And thank you all for coming. I'm the Public Information Officer for Taos County. I'm Steve Fullendorf, and so if I can facilitate helping to get information or further questions along the way, more than happy to do that. And with that, thank you very much for joining us today.